I hope in my attempt to answer this question, I will not be a drama king. That is a very difficult question. So how the debt will be paid, we have to maybe think through it and see how the debt will be paid. But that will be a very...
Oh, hi, this is Jackie and you are watching Morris TV. Keep it locked.
Want to sound as though I want to encourage indiscipline in the sector, but I think that I wish I was not the one at the center of this issue. I wish that a nurse or a health professional has been called to answer how maybe he or she has mistreated or mishandled a client or a patient, and not about the minister. I am a public servant. And if His Excellency John Dramani Mahama is your president, you must always look up to him. Freedom of speech, your right to demonstrate, divergent opinion are some of the tenets His Excellency the President upholds so high. And so you cannot be his appointee and frown on those things. And so I have absolutely nothing against anybody who demonstrates. But of course, as I stated earlier on, let us do that responsibly. And so I'll urge the Director General of the Ghana Health Service to temper justice with mercy. This is not to encourage anybody to act irresponsibly. But I think that this should not engage our attention. What is important is how we will solve the issues, the challenges we have inherited. That should be the focus, and not these tangentials. I would also not want to sound as though I am condemning those who want to uphold professionalism and discipline in the sector. No, I will not do that. But with the greatest of respect. We have done this work for more than 25 years. We've gone through, the extreme. We've gone to worse things than this. But once you are determined to serve your people, some of these things are simply not avoidable. You meet them. And by the grace of God, I have the skin to accommodate some of these things. And so, subsequently, it was over the weekends, I will engage the Director General on phone and then try to appeal to him to... That doesn't stop any measures they are taking with respect to other things or any disciplinary actions they are taking in the sector or what have you. But I do not want it to be said that as though somebody openly expressed his or her opinion and she's being gagged, and you know how people will read meanings into this, and that will divert their attention from the good things we are doing. We are determined, we are resolute, we are focused to fix the challenges we have inherited as part of the resettlement. When the issues are understood this way, that people have completed and they've not gotten anything, and we are fixing it. Even if you demonstrate, Ghanaians will understand. And they will know where it's coming from. And that's what I'm seeking to do. My dearness, those who have completed And those of you who are working, all those issues will be sorted out. We'll fix those ones. So everybody will not leave some of these things in a mess as we inherited. The union leaders here, I will urge you to continue to work with us. Work with us. At the end of the day, we are the mother ministry, and the issues will not be settled in the street. I can give you an example. The junior medical doctors issued a roadmap for strike on the 3rd of October. Their clearance was issued on the 1st of October. If they had gotten to us for an update, maybe they wouldn't have gone out there. Demonstrations and strikes is their right, so nobody can stop anybody from demonstrating. That's the first response I can give to this one. It is my responsibility as a minister to let the public understand the issues. As for how you take it, will be entirely your option. These issues, everybody here would agree with me that this is the first time I'm having the opportunity to explain some of these issues. But we have a country to govern. And so I will do my best under the circumstances to serve Mother Ghana. His Excellency the President, John Dramani Mahama, is so committed to the health sector. You'd all recall, and the nurses will bear me out, that immediately we took office, there was a fiat to allow everybody who was employed after 7 December to go home. Am I the only person who heard it? But His Excellency said that should not be applicable in the health sector. And so we will do our best under the... Anyway, so in actual fact, everybody, if I say everybody, the only gap is the 6,000 something. The 7,000 are already being paid. So what it means is that by November, all the 13,500 nurses and midwives will be paid. Everybody. So this is the last batch of how we're staggering it. And so we'll migrate, we'll onboard all the 6,000 something for them to be fully paid. So let me answer that question. Let me tie in this question with the issue of arrears. Yes, so the regular payment will start from November, but we'll issue how we are going to pay the arrears. The arrears will be paid. It's work you have done, and we'll make sure that you are paid accordingly. Of the pharmacist. Ordinarily, these pharmacists should have started their housemanship. These pharmacists completed their course in 2024. Now, if you allow them to work without financial clearance, okay, we'll witness what we are seeing at the moment. And so there is the need for us to give them financial clearance before they start the housemanship. And I can assure you, it was part of what we discussed at Cabinet, and Cabinet has approved that. Demonstrations and strikes is their right, so nobody can stop anybody from demonstrating. That's the first response I can give to this one. It is my responsibility as a minister to let the public understand the issues. As for how you take it, will be entirely your option. These issues, everybody here would agree with me that this is the first time I'm having the opportunity to explain some of these issues. But we have a country to govern. And so I will do my best under the circumstances to serve Mother Ghana. His Excellency the President, John Dramani Mahama, is so committed to the health sector. You'd all recall, and the nurses will bear me out, that immediately we took office, there was a fiat to allow everybody who was employed after 7 December to go home. Am I the only person who heard it? But His Excellency said that should not be applicable in the health sector. And so we will do our best under the circumstances. I hope in my attempt to answer this question, I will not be a drama king. Anyway, so in actual fact, everybody, if I say everybody, the only gap is the 6,000 something. The 7,000 are already being paid. So what it means is that by November, all the 13,500 nurses and midwives will be paid. Everybody. So this is the last batch of how we were staggering it. And so we'll migrate, we'll onboard all the 6,000 something for them to be fully paid. Yes, so the regular payment will start from November, but we'll issue how we are going to pay the arrears. The arrears will be paid. It's work you have done, and we'll make sure that you are paid accordingly. And the issue of the pharmacist. Ordinarily, these pharmacists should have started their housemanship. These pharmacists completed their course in 2024. Now, if you allow them to work without financial clearance, okay, we'll witness what we are seeing at the moment. And so there is the need for us to give them financial clearance before they start the housemanship. And I can assure you, it was part of what we discussed at Cabinet, and Cabinet has approved that too must be cleared as soon as possible. That is a very difficult question. So how the debt will be paid, we have to maybe think through it and see how the debt will be paid. But that will be a very difficult situation. To brief all of you on some of the difficult challenges we inherited as government, and not to lament or complain, but to tell you what we have done about those challenges. I know that the public interest in the issues of health is very high. Rightly so, because it is very essential for our survival. Ladies and gentlemen, in January 2025, when we took office as government, in the Ministry of Health, we inherited a situation where about 13,500 nurses and midwives had been recruited and posted without financial clearance, without any provision to pay them. In fact, the financial clearance with respect to the 13,500 nurses and midwives expired on 31st December 2024. What it means is that when a financial clearance is issued, you must necessarily migrate the health professionals onto the payroll before the expiration of the clearance or the financial clearance. So, if it expires, what it means is that there is no financial provision for these people. This is a fact. And so we had two options as government. whether to let all the 13,500 nurses and midwives go home, whilst we look for the financial provision, we look for money. And issuing clearance is not just for issuing sake. Once you are issuing the clearance, you must be ready to pay them. And so the first option was to allow all of them to go home, whilst we look at how we can get money to call them back. And so if you remember, it was a topical issue when we took office that we were going to sack some health professionals. So some of the associations even reacted to this. And the second option was to allow them to continue to work once we look at how we can get money to pay them. And I'm talking about 13,500 nurses and midwives. So as government, we chose the latter. Because we cannot allow the 13,500 people to go home and add on to the over 74,000 health professionals who have already been trained and they are at home. And to tell you the truth, I have never regretted that we chose the option of allowing them to work and finding ways to pay them. When we chose that option, we didn't go to sleep. This is what we have done. Out of the about 13,500, as I speak to you, about 7,000 out of the 13,500 are being paid. They are on the payroll and they are being paid. Here, let me further explain that in actual fact, those that we have succeeded in putting them on the payroll are about 10,000. But out of the 10,000, 7,000 of them are being paid, and 3,000 though on the payroll, but they are not being paid. So you will hear situations like, yes, I am on the payroll, but I'm not being paid. That is why I'm giving you this explanation. So 7,000 are being paid. Ladies and gentlemen, issues of salaries and monuments, as a ministry, we must necessarily collaborate with the Ministry of Finance. We cannot do it alone. And so we had an outstanding of 6,500 nurses and midwives whilst we were taking steps to onboard all these people onto the payroll and get them paid. So don't forget, out of the 10,000, some 3,000 have not been paid, and about 3,500 have also not been put on the payroll at all. So making 6,500. Especially so when that was not the only difficult situation we inherited. So anytime you go to the Ministry of Finance, it is about putting another weight on the public purse. I'll give you examples. We had health professionals who had completed their housemanship, and some of them doing their housemanship without clearance in 2024. So we successfully collaborated with the Ministry of Finance to get about 883 of these officers getting clearance so that they can get their allowances. You recently heard some junior doctors threatening to go on strike. They have started work without clearance, without salaries, without pay. Again, we collaborated with the Ministry of Finance, and as I speak to you now, we have succeeded in getting them clearance and they are being migrated onto the payroll. We had about 800 medical doctors who had finished their housemanship but they were still at home without clearance. As I speak to you now, the Ministry of Finance has issued clearance, and all these medical doctors are going to start work with immediate effect. And with this one, our priority areas are in the rural areas. So it was not only the issue of the 13,500 nurses and midwives. There were pharmacists who had completed their housemanship as far back from 2023 to 2024 who had not been paid. We inherited that. And those people have been paid. I am telling you what we inherited and what we have done about them and what we are doing about them. We had more than 17,000 rotational nurses, allied health professionals who also didn't have clearance as far as their rotation was concerned. By the grace of God, we have secured clearance for these more than 17,000 health professionals. That was not the only thing. There were issues about conditions of service. You've heard them before. And so we had to onboard them gradually, because you agree with me that we also have a country to govern. Ladies and gentlemen, as I speak to you now, that about 6,500, that will add up to the 7,000 already being paid, making 13,500. That's allowance. That's over 6,000. Cabinet has approved that with immediate effect, starting from November, the Minister for Finance must pay them. And I have in my hand the letter to that effect. And so these were the difficulties. I empathize with anybody who had to go through this painful situation. But it is important for Ghanaians to be taken along.
This is Etemahima Akusia Ode Walker. Please continue to watch Morris TV.
Please subscribe to Morris TV GA.